I'd like to thank you all for being here with me today. I am truly grateful to see all of your supporting faces here as we gather to celebrate this pivotal moment in my academic journey. Your presence and support have been provided along the way mean the world to me. Graduation is just around the corner, and it fills me with immense joy to have you all share these final moments with me. Thank you again for your unwavering support and making this moment even more special. With that said, let's embark on this presentation together. Today, I'll be discussing, does the use of body-worn cameras enhance public trust? This presentation is going to explore the impact of body-worn cameras on trust building in law enforcement interactions with the public. The research delves into how these devices increase accountability and transparency, provide unbiased accounts of incidents, and influence perceptions of fairness and impartiality. The study investigates whether the presence of body-worn cameras affects the behavior of both officers and citizens, contributing to a perception of impartiality and fairness. Furthermore, this presentation will examine how body-worn cameras influence community engagement with law enforcement, focusing on the dynamics of trust, cooperation, and transparency in these interactions. Through an analysis of empirical findings and theoretical frameworks, this research sheds light on the multifaceted role of body-worn cameras in shaping relationships between law enforcement and the public. All right, let's dive into it. In an era marked by scrutiny of law enforcement practices and growing demand for transparency, the implementation of body-worn cameras has emerged as a prominent tool to enhance transparency and accountability and foster public trust. The debate surrounding the efficacy of body-worn cameras in improving police-community relations is multifaceted, with proponents hailing them as providing an unbiased record of interactions and detractors questioning their impact on privacy and effectiveness. Delving into the critical questions, do body-worn cameras worn by law enforcement truly enhance public trust? By addressing this question, it can be found that body-worn cameras have the potential to enhance public trust in law enforcement by increasing transparency, improving police behavior, and safeguarding people's privacy while making use of technological advances. Body-worn cameras were first introduced in the early 2000s as an aid to criminal investigations, monitoring the interactions between police officers and community members. These cameras serve as a way to capture police professionalism, reducing misconduct, and fostering organizational integrity. The presence of these cameras can help with improved communications as they have the ability to influence the interactions of those being recorded. This can lead to de-escalation in tense situations and positive outcomes for community trust building. Offering a comprehensive view of the scenes recorded, body cameras help officers be more accountable for their actions. As Officer Jonathan from the Sunshine Police Department says, no one wants to be seen in bad light on the news. To understand the dynamics of trust between law enforcement and the public, it's imperative to understand and explore the theoretical underpinnings that shape these interactions. For this study, focused on the social exchange theory and symbolic interactionism. The social exchange theory is a psychological and sociological concept that explains human behavior in relationships based on the idea of individuals engaging in interactions to either maximize rewards or minimize the costs. According to this theory, people weigh the benefits and the drawbacks of a relationship to determine its worth and whether or not to continue it or to disengage. It emphasizes the importance of reciprocity equity, and the exchange of resources in shaping social interactions and relationships. So, some rewards when dealing with the social exchange theory in relation to law enforcement can be the feelings of safety and security, respect, clearness, and fair treatment during interactions. On the other hand, the costs may look like experiences of discrimination, abuse of power, lack of responsibility, or just breakdowns in communications. When officers utilize the body-worn cameras during the interactions with the public, the presence of the camera can enhance the clarity and answerability. So it serves as reward to foster that trust, knowing that nothing can be left up to the memory of what happened during the interactions. Nothing can be added to or taken away from it because the records are factual and just completely documented. The second key concept is symbolic interactionism, which is a sociological perspective that focuses on how individuals create and interpret symbols to communicate and make sense of the social world. It emphasizes the importance of symbols such as language, gestures, objects, in shaping the interactions with others and the meanings that we attach to them. This theory highlights the significance of symbols in shaping our identities, relationships, and society as a whole through ongoing social interactions. What this may look like in regards to interactions between law enforcement officers and community members is that the camera itself may look like a symbolic representation of accuracy. It puts a sense of accountability onto the officer and also gives the individual they're speaking with a way to see that there's blameworthiness and professionalism, and it can alter how society interacts with officers, because they're, you want to put your best foot forward, so to speak. So you're more likely to be acting in a non-confrontational demeanor as well, which just can help overall with communication with the parties involved. With that communication and the visibility of the cameras, there is a sense of security and reassurance that the rights are being protected and accountability measures are in place. So the recording from these cameras can serve as valuable evidence in cases of disputes or allegations, which just contributes to the credibility of law enforcement officers and their actions. All right, the impact of body-worn cameras on trust building. As we know, the body-worn cameras were introduced as a tool to enhance the transparency and accountability and trust between law enforcement and the community. And the presence of these cameras does impact the trust building that occurs. Obviously, with accountability, body-worn cameras hold officers to a standard of professionalism in their interactions with their behaviors with the public, and knowing that their actions are being recorded can and does encourage officers to adhere to the policies and procedures that are in place, which enhances the trust in their conduct with the community. And transparency with the use of body-worn cameras, providing a record of the interactions between officers and civilians. It can help clarify disputes or misunderstandings that arise, and can foster trust by ensuring that these interactions are accurately documented, which kind of just ties back into that social interactionism. We know it's there. You can see it displayed on the uniform, and you're able to know that everything is it's clear cut, recorded, it's factual, nothing is added to, it can't be taken away from. And then we also know that there's research that has shown that with the presence of body-worn cameras, it can lead to better behavior from both law enforcement and the members of the public during the interactions. And then people that are aware of being recorded act more respectfully and professionally. So it's just an overall more positive experience, which increases trust between the parties. It makes people see if something is happening and they need to report it to police. They're more likely to do so because they feel comfortable knowing that they're going to be treated respectfully and with dignity, and that the officer is going to take them seriously. So overall, the body cameras do positively impact the trust building process between regular everyday citizens and law enforcement, by promoting that accountability, that transparency in the actions with improved behavior. So let's keep going. Okay, so we kind of talked about this already, the impact on police behavior just a moment ago, as far as do the body-worn cameras influence the behavior of law enforcement officers? Absolutely it does. Knowing that being recorded means that they're going to act more professional. They're going to treat their subjects with respect and dignity, and look at all the circumstances surrounding the incident, whatever that may be, and just knowing that they're going to be held accountable for their actions. If the community member they are speaking with feels that they're not being treated fairly in it, then that camera footage is available to be able to be pulled back, and you can go back through it and see what happened, to see why they felt this way, or if they really were mistreated during the stop. So, and we kind of already touched on an officer's point of view, where Jonathan from the Sunshine Police Department said that nobody wants to be seen in bad light on the news. Generally, when the news comes on at 6 o'clock, people watch it, and you do have the moments where people see officers in bad light because of situations that have occurred, and having the body-worn camera footage and being able to see what actually happened versus what's being portrayed, or the narrative that's been given, does play a big role in how the community perceives law enforcement and their willingness to want to work with law enforcement officers on things that are coming up and occurring. Okay, and like the impact on police perception, right? We just touched on this. perception that the community has is poorly of the police and law enforcement in general. It's going to affect how the community interacts with officers on a daily basis. It's going to affect if they are willing to cooperate in investigations or answer questions. It creates a poor narrative of the individuals out there serving the community, trying to do what's best. If they're not given trust by the community, if the community just feels they are not going to be listened to and heard. And a big portion of the way the community perceives law enforcement is not so much on a daily interaction, because I feel like most people don't often run into law enforcement unless you were working with them, so you're not seeing them on a day-to-day basis. You might see them out and about, but are you actually stopping and talking to them? I feel like most people don't. Most people want to avoid the police if given the opportunity. So the way that people are going in, the community's being able to perceive how law enforcement is, and being able to decide if they are going to trust them and put their faith into them is going to come from like media portrayal and that public image that is placed out there. So with that, it is super important on how media does portray law enforcement. In this instance, there's the case of Laquan McDonald. This individual was shot in Chicago in 2014. And the reason that this case is so important is because there was a body-worn camera on, and the footage was recorded. So when the case first came out, the official police report dictated that the shooting was justified. It cited that McDonald was aggressive towards officers, and when the media got a hold of it, this really shaped how people perceived their local law enforcement officers, and it took a year before the footage was finally released. And what the public found out is that it completely contradicted that report. The footage showed that McDonald was walking away from the officer when he was shot, which debunks the justification that was claimed that he was being aggressive towards our officers. And it sparks a lot of questions and concerns and outrage with the public, because it was not what happened. And if officers are lying now, and if we didn't have the body camera footage, like what else would they be lying about? So it is super important that the footage be there, so that way you can see what happened, but also to hold officers accountable for their actions, so that way in these events where the officer was untruthful, that they can be disciplined appropriately based on the circumstances of the case and their actions that caused whatever necessary struggle image that was displayed. All right. And now we are going to move into the privacy and ethical concerns that are associated with body-worn cameras, and then how law enforcement can balance the need for transparency with individual privacy rights. All right, so there are some privacy concerns that surround the use of body-worn cameras in law enforcement operations. And one of those is the invasion of privacy in private settings, such as homes, schools, healthcare facilities. The concern being that the interactions are continuously recorded, so it brings about questions about individual rights to privacy and the clear need for policies that delineate when cameras should be turned on, when they should be turned off, to respect these boundaries. And then there's also the concern of storage with body cameras. Obviously, that's going to be quite a bit of storage, and how to handle that. And one way that it has been addressed is the Office of Inspector General put out that there is a program manager, and what they do is ensure that all of the footage that is recorded is put into the appropriate files. They make sure that sensitive footage is put into a separate cloud system that enables only certain people to have access. It gives more security so that the sensitive information, particularly if it's involving like domestic violence or juveniles, minors, it can be safeguarded, protected, and not everyone is going to be able to see that footage. It just makes sure that it ends up where it needs to. Additionally, the program manager will make sure that once a case is completed, if there were trainings that needed to take place for certain cases, that once those things have been completed, then the footage is removed. They also make sure that footage stays, if it's only supposed to be there for a year, it is removed after that year. So there's a lot of responsibility on the program manager, but they do ensure, those privacy concerns are handled. And it just makes sure that there is a maintenance of like liability and clarity within policing. So to balance the need for transparency with individual rights, mention trainings. That's definitely something that should be done, and it's just going to be there to like balance the knowledge and the skills of officers to ensure that they are not infringing on individuals' rights to privacy. It does give officers the ability to focus on understanding the laws regarding privacy and respecting personal boundaries, and then also how to properly handle sensitive situations. So a couple of case studies that show how important it is to have that camera footage is the case of Daunte Wright and then George Floyd. Daunte Wright was a 20-year-old person of color that was stopped in the Brooklyn Center, Minnesota in April of 2021 by Officer Kim Potter. She's a veteran police officer, and she mistakenly drew her firearm instead of her taser and shot Dante as he was attempting to drive away. The entire scene was caught on camera, and once it was released, it sparked outrage and protests against police brutality and racism, and gained some national attention, and highlighted some needs for police reform and accountability measures. Officer Potter's camera obviously playing a very big role in this, since she was able to see everything that happened, and the shooting. So the visual evidence gave the jury what they needed to be able to ensure that they provided the right consequences for the actions, and then also contributed to making sure that there is plenty of police training and protocol adherence, as well as honesty in similar situations. And then the other case study is George Floyd, who was a very popular case back during COVID. Also a person of color. George Floyd was 46 years old when he died after police Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for 9 minutes. This is super important because it was not just the officer's footage that captured the incidents, but there were bystanders capturing everything, every angle of this horrendous act. And there were instances where Floyd mentioned that he couldn't breathe, but the officer never let up. So this too, having the footage was super important, so it was able to showcase what needed to be done. And this case too brought up instances of racial inequality and officer brutality, use of force, things like that. So it kind of catalyzed a widespread motion for policy changes and protests on a national level, just to make sure that, you know, people are treated fair across the board, regardless of where they come from or what they look like. All right, and then moving into the empirical data, there is research conducted by the Police Executive Research Forum, also known as PERF, that shows how the body-worn cameras have truly impacted public trust in law enforcement across the United States. In 2023, they conducted a study through various agencies across the states, and it showed that people were more trusting in their local law enforcement agencies because of the body-worn cameras. It also showed that there was a reduction in the amount of complaints against police officers, and also the use of force by police officers. So it's a win-win situation that everyone is able to kind of benefit from, having the body-worn cameras and that footage being available and just documenting everything because it is unbiased. And then there's also the tangible benefits for both law enforcement and the communities they serve. where there is a sense of openness and comprehensibility just between everybody. And having these devices does help to protect that positive perception from the community in regards to police officers, and not just to help protect it, but also to help develop it and enhance and secure that community members feel safe working with police officers. Okay, so policy implications and recommendations. I feel like that's pretty important for promoting the responsibility and accuracy and trust within the communities. It also just makes sure that, nope, sorry. There should be policies in place that outline clear guidelines, so officers know when to record interactions, and then specific procedures for storing and managing the footage. And then trainings should be in place that educate law enforcement personnel on proper use of body-worn cameras, and then emphasize the adherence to these policies and ethical standards. Having the training can help enhance the perception of policing within the community, and allowing regular access to review the body-worn camera policies to incorporate feedback from stakeholders within the community. Just helps to make sure that there is a solid effectiveness for the program. And then if there are adjustments that need to be made, it can enhance the blameworthiness and perceptibility within the organizations as well. Okay. Overall, we found that the utilization of body-worn cameras is highly important, not just with investigations, but through the case studies of Daunte Wright and George Floyd. We're able to see that it can serve as a critical tool to provide objective evidence in contentious situations. It not only aids in investigations and good faith of law enforcement actions, but it also influences media portrayal and public perception of policing practices. I think it is imperative for law enforcement to continue to establish clear policies and guidelines for these cameras, and then to take into considerations the privacy and ethics, so that public trust can be built upon and continue to thrive in the world that we are in now. I thank you again for coming today, and I look forward to the next time.